The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got. They're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
I have been in sports radio since it was invented in 1987. I have offered my share of really, really stupid hot takes. I've heard a lot of stupid hot takes over the years. But what I heard from Joey Galloway, who's part of the analysis crew as the playoff brackets were unveiled last night, college football in the rankings, what he said about the Indiana quarterback has to be one of the dumbest things ever said in front of a live microphone. Oh, my God. We're going to get to that later this hour. Of course, we'll deal with the Commanders, get back on the practice field today as they get ready for the Cowboys. You know, they're 10.5-point favorites now. 10.5 at home against the Cowboys. That's insane, given the rivalry that these teams have had. I know it's, kind of been dormant for a while, and Cowboys really do look bad, especially offensively. They can't run, they can't throw, and their defense isn't very good either. They gave up 34 points to Houston, but wow, 10.5 points in this game. I never thought I would see the day, but the day is here, and we will get to that. I guess the first thing to unpack is what happened yesterday in the Senate committee regarding the land that RFK still stands on. I'm really amazed that we're at the end of 2024 and the guts of RFK Stadium, or the frame of it, is still up. They have taken out all the seats. They've taken out anything of value there, and the only question is, what is the land going to be used for? And at one point, I thought it was a done deal that it was going to be parkland and they were going to change everything around. But obviously, a stadium there is still in play. I think most people, certainly those who grew up rooting for this team and remember the great days of going to RFK Stadium and watching the stadium on TV, that's another part of it too. There's only 55,000 people in there, so there's millions more that are watching on television, and the sight of those stands moving up and down, and the way the stadium was built, where the fans were on top of the field, and the noise and all that—that's a great romantic notion that you'd like to bring back. And look, anybody who's made the schlep out to Landover and sat in traffic on the Beltway forever would like to get out of that mess and have it back in a centrally located place, where people from Maryland and Virginia can go, and you get the blimp shot of the monuments at night when they play on Monday Night Football and all that stuff. I mean, those are things that really were part of the fabric of the winning that took place with that team in the 1980s and into the 1990s, and it's long been forgotten, but this is an opportunity to bring it back. Now, I can't say I'm a political expert on this. I'm just going by what I'm reading. But this was a big step forward yesterday as the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee voted to advance the bill. It passed 17-2. Now it goes to a full Senate vote, and they have to get this done by December 28th, by the end of the year, or it gets tabled for another year, which could be another deciding factor in whether or not this actually happens in the District of Columbia, because the way that the clock is ticking on the need for a new stadium, the new ownership. They've done a lot of great things so far, but this is the big step that I think people want to see over beyond, of course, having a winning team, which they have, and apparently a franchise quarterback. Keep your fingers crossed on that, but. This would be huge, and where this stadium is going to be is a big deal. Now, they say Virginia is still in play. I think with what happened with Ted Leonsis and the door slammed in his face when he thought he had a deal with Glenn Youngkin to move the Caps and the Wizards there tells you that it's not going to happen in Virginia. But Maryland would be very much in play, and there is Senate opposition on this. This has to go through unanimously. This can't be like the committee vote yesterday, 17-2. There can be one senator who can hold this up, and it might be Chris Van Hollen or it might be Ben Cardin, both from Maryland. They'd like to keep the revenue from the team in Maryland. They have offered, the state has $400 million for infrastructure for them to rebuild on the same site. It is a much easier move for the organization because they already own the land that Northwest Stadium sits on now. They would presumably build the stadium closer to the Morgan Boulevard Metro, though I'm told it wouldn't be exactly like it has been at RFK, where you just, walk around the corner off the Metro into the stadium. It's now like a 25-minute walk from the Morgan Boulevard Metro to the stadium. It would be, I'm told, like 15. It wouldn't be, it would be better, but it wouldn't be nearly as good as it is at RFK. So that's something to keep in mind. But obviously, Mayor Bowser is very happy about that. The city of D.C. is happy. She wrote in a statement today, today's vote marks a pivotal moment in our efforts to unlock the potential of the RFK campus. We look forward to a full vote in the Senate floor so we can get it signed and into law before the year's end. And that's a big thing. They've got to get this done quickly. Now, there's the roadblock that was overcome yesterday in this committee vote. Senator Steve Daines of Montana had been representing the family of Walter Blackie Wetzel, who designed the logo, which went on the helmet in 1972 and stayed on it through the 2019 season. So nearly 50 years of that helmet logo with the profile of the Native American, which was dropped when they went to Washington football team. And I think this is a pretty big deal here, beyond just that family is satisfied by the efforts of the team. They have a display now at Northwest Stadium with the old logo and things like that. But this paragraph in this story in the Post opens up some thoughts for me on this. In September, Commanders and National Football League representatives visited the family in Montana and hosted them in Maryland to unveil a memorial to Wetzel. The family and the team have also discussed creating a foundation to support Native American causes, though details have not been finalized. And here's the really curious thing for me, this sentence. And the team has assured the family it will no longer edit out the logo from throwback merchandise. Now, this was at the end of the 2023 season. Yeah, I guess it was only a year ago that Sonny Jurgensen's number 9 was retired. And Dan Snyder was gone. I'm told Mitch Rales gave his plane to pick up Sonny and Billy and others to attend the ceremony, the family of Sonny. And when they did the number retirement, they couldn't have any merchandise or any displays which had the old logo because of the sensitivity of it. So what they're saying now is the team has essentially agreed that they will sell throwback merchandise with the logo on it. And for me, I mean, I've been wrestling with this for a while, ever since 2020 when they dropped the name Redskins. I have a closet full of stuff, sweatshirts and T-shirts and hats and all kinds of things that have the old logo on it. Should I now feel comfortable wearing them? Should I buy more stuff that I guess is now going to become available through Fanatics and the Team Shop and everywhere else they sell this stuff, Dick's Sporting Goods? I don't know. I mean, I've stayed away from it because I feel like it's a kind of a hot button here. But the imagery versus the name becomes an interesting debate. Nobody, and even the family of Walter Blackie Wetzel, nobody believes that Redskins will come back or should come back. That name is gone. It's not going to happen again. As team officials have said, that ship has sailed. But the logo, which I always, kind of liked, but wondered whether or not, Native Americans had feelings about it, that it was racist. I haven't gone back to it. I've shirts that I like, that I'd actually like to wear, but again, I don't want to ruffle any feathers on that. So that may be something that you yourself may have to wrestle with if you have all this merchandise and haven't worn it. I see it out, of course, all the time. And if you go to the games, you'll see a good percentage of the fans still wearing sweatshirts, T-shirts, hats, things like that have that. And then there's the group that says, you got to bring back Redskins. You got to bring back. Well, that's not going to happen. But it does bring up an interesting debate with that agreement in place that the team has assured them it will no longer edit out the old logo from throwback merchandise. Now, they did do Darryl Green earlier this year. That was last month when they retired number 28. and there was plenty of highlights that they showed of his career, but I don't remember them having any, imagery in terms of what they did with the retirement ceremony. So as they move forward, and there are going to be more retirements too. I think John Riggins, 44, is going to go. Charlie Taylor should not be overlooked. 42 should be retired. And they've kept Larry Brown's 43 out of circulation. He's not in the Hall of Fame and may not make the Hall of Fame, but was such a beloved player here that I think eventually you could see his number 43 being retired. As far as I know, nobody's worn it since he played his last season in 1976. Eric Flack of WUSA Channel 9 has really been out in front on this, and for whatever gaps you might have in information and questions that you have about what this means, this vote yesterday in the committee, that the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee voting to move this ahead to the Senate. I think Flack does a pretty good job, as this news was breaking yesterday on Channel 9, of explaining where things are as we sit here in late November with the clock ticking towards a deadline at the end of next month.
I'm standing right outside this hearing room for the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, where this vote took place just a couple hours ago. And while this is not a done deal for the Commanders' return to the RFK site, it is still a huge step towards the Commanders' return potentially to the District of Columbia. Now, just a couple hours ago, it was inside a packed hearing room for this committee. At the center of the discussion was this bill granting D.C. long-term control of the RFK site. Now, there were representatives from the Commanders and Mayor Bowser's office inside in attendance, anxiously awaiting the vote. Montana's Senator Steve Daines, who had previously opposed the bill due to the team's refusal to use and honor that old Indian head logo, turned around, and this was a surprise. He announced his support, and that shift signaled growing momentum for the RFK bill inside this room. Ultimately, this legislation passed with an overwhelming 17-2 vote. Moments later, Mayor Bowser's point person on the Commander Stadium negotiation reacted to the good news.
It's a great day in Washington. This is the fans, the citizens of the District of Columbia want the team to come home, and this is one step in the process, and we're looking forward to bringing them home.
Yeah, the key there is one step in the process. This bill now moves to the full Senate floor, but with only 9 working days left before Congress adjourns for this entire session, there is just not enough time for this bill to get a standalone hearing, which means it has to be inserted into a larger bill like a spending bill, and that is easier said than done. One source close to this situation told me that this was a big step. That is a much more challenging step, to get it inserted into a bigger bill for potential approval before the end of the session. But I've already been told people from the team and also people who worked on and supported this bill in this committee are already working on it. But Simone, not a lot of time to go.
That's Eric Flack yesterday on Channel 9. So, the clock is ticking. They have to get a vote on this by the end of the year. There's one other factor I think worth discussing here, and that's the new administration. And Donald Trump has sparred with the NFL before. Colin Kaepernick situation where, he said, hey, an owner should cut a player who takes a knee, get rid of those SOBs, is the way he put it. And he tried to force a merger with the NFL when he was an owner in the USFL with the New Jersey Generals. At one point, he tried to buy the Buffalo Bills. He's always had an infatuation with the NFL, but there's also the part where they butt heads too, where he tried to force a merger, and this part I did not know about until I read the story in the Post this morning about the connection with Josh Harris. I did not know, according to the paper here, that he has ties with Trump. In 2017, Harris advised the White House on infrastructure policy, according to the New York Times, and he and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, discussed a job in the administration for Harris. That may have been news, but we didn't know Josh Harris then. Josh Harris's name didn't become prominent until the team went up for sale in 2022. It's only in the last 2 years that we've gotten to know the name Josh Harris. So Josh Harris conceivably could have had a spot in the first Trump administration. Harris also loaned Kushner's family real estate, a real estate firm, $184 million, an unusually large amount, the Times reported, to refinance the mortgage on a Chicago skyscraper. Well, he does have, his investment company, Apollo Investments, so that might have been part of that too. But I did not really recognize that. I knew that Snyder was very much tied to Trump and donated heavily to his campaign, but I did not realize that. So, is it possible? And there was a Mark Fisher column, in the Post last week, where he suggested that Trump, as he gets a little bored in the White House and doesn't really have the patience for things involving his real job, might turn his attention to getting a stadium built in D.C. Now, he and the mayor have butted heads, too. But, somehow or another, he plows ahead and maybe he becomes a factor in this getting built, and he would want the glory, want everybody praising him for getting it done. So there's a lot of things still in play at this point, but obviously what happened yesterday is a step forward towards the greater possibility that the stadium will be built on the RFK site. I still don't think it's out of the question that it's built in Maryland. In fact, if you had to score it now, it might be, in my mind, like 55% in favor of Maryland keeping the team there with a new stadium versus the what would be a 45% chance that it winds up in the district. But that's just my finger in the air handicapping there. There's no science behind any of that. All right, coming up, Johnny Manziel yesterday was on the Rich Eisen show, and wow, with what he went through post Cleveland Browns, even during his stay in the Cleveland Browns, I never thought he would get to this place. And frankly, I agreed with his father, who wondered whether he would still be alive. But he seems to have his act together. He's got a podcast now and seems to be well-versed on college football. And he told some stories yesterday when he was on the Rich Eisen show. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Wouldn't call this huge breaking news, but we now have a list of 25 modern era players for the Football Hall of Fame. This doesn't include the old-timers who are up, and that I believe Joe Jacoby is still on the list. I hope he is. That's a separate category. This is for the modern era, the committee of, I think it's like 39 guys, mostly newspaper people, who get together every year just for the Super Bowl and vote in the class, the incoming class for the Hall of Fame. But there are 25 still on the list. I'm going to blow through these real quickly. Eli Manning, I say yes, should get in. 4 to 8 from this list. 4 to 8 from this list of 25. Eli Manning, yes. Luke Kuechly, kind of short career, I say no. Steve Smith, yes, think he should get in. Earl Thomas, safety, part of a Super Bowl team in Seattle. Not sure on that. Adam Vinatieri, yes, I think he should get in. I think he should be the third kicker to get in. I believe that should be the case, that he had maybe the greatest field goal in the history of the NFL. People always talk about the tuck rule from that game between the Raiders and the Patriots, which was the year that Brady won his first Super Bowl as a rookie. And the tuck rule, had it not been overturned, he would not have gotten to the Super Bowl. But it was Vinatieri kicking the field goal in the snow that really was the game winner there for New England. I would put him in. Defensive end Jared Allen, a lot of sacks. I think he's got a shot. Terrell Suggs. Yeah, I think so. Antonio Gates, yes, I think he should get in. Marshall Leonda, guard with the Ravens, I don't know. I guess. They had an excellent running game when he was there. James Harrison, yes, should get in. Had an incredible run back in the Super Bowl. Sometimes a signature play will do that for you. Vince Wilfork, I say no. Willie Anderson, not Flipper Anderson. This is a tackle, Willie Anderson. No. Torrey Holt, no. Anquan Bolden, no. Reggie Wayne, yeah, I think so. I have to look at his numbers, but numbers are kind of skewed for wide receivers. But having played with Peyton Manning, won a Super Bowl, I think there's a real shot. Jahari Evans, guard, not sure. Rodney Harrison, no. Eric Allen, he's been on there for a while, hasn't gotten in. Robert Mathis, defensive end. Fred Taylor, running back, no. Hines Ward, Hines Ward, yes. I think he was the MVP of a Super Bowl for the Steelers, the one that beat Seattle. I think so. Ricky Waters, no. Richmond Webb, maybe. Steve Wisniewski, maybe. And Darren Woodson's been on the list for a long time. So those are the 25 that are left, and they're going to narrow that down, and as many as 8 of them could get in, and as few as 4. They usually have 8. I would think that 8 would be a number again this year. All right, Johnny Manziel. He was an incredible college quarterback for 2 years at Texas A&M, and there was stuff that went on. We later found out about, that he was signing autographs, and he was basically reckless. He was a totally reckless guy. But the way the game of football is played now, there would be a place for Johnny Manziel if he could have kept his head on straight. But he couldn't do that. He had all kinds of different issues and was showing up late for meetings in Cleveland and eventually was cut. And I think his total NFL career was 2 years. That was it. And, had he had better discipline, I think he might still be in the league. He might not be a starter, but he did things in his day that were kind of revolutionary and now are common. You see quarterbacks who can run all the time. And Johnny Manziel was elusive. He was exciting. And there was reason to believe, had he not had all these personal issues, that he would be great. And so when he was on with Eisen yesterday, and he was on to promote his podcast called Glory Days, spelled D-A-Z-E, which I think tells you kind of about his off-the-field life there. He was asked by Eisen if you could tell yourself something on draft night, the night that you were drafted, number 22 overall by the Cleveland Browns, what would you tell yourself?
I would have probably told myself to relax a little bit and just, trust the process and where things are going to go. I think I was so, worried and anxious at that time in my life of, necessarily feeling like I had to be a first-round pick or I had to be this or I had to be that. And I think I would have probably enjoyed the moment a little more. I think if I would go back in time, I don't know if I would go to the NFL draft. I think I would have been better for me to spend it with my family and kind of be somewhere else. It was a little bit of a whirlwind looking back on it now, but just to enjoy the moment a little bit more and not to be so stressed. I put in a lot of work before the draft to be able to put myself in a position, put a lot of good things on tape to be able to get drafted. So, just kind of to be a little more calm.
I've been meaning to ask you these questions. I'm glad you're sitting here for years. Did you think the Cowboys were coming to get you?
I did. As that pick was kind of going by at 16, the people around my circle and my camp, my agent, they didn't have really any, thought or that was going to even remotely be the case at all. But, me just being, a Texas guy, having grown up liking the Cowboys, I think there was always a thought that if I was sitting there at that point in time, that maybe it would have happened.
Did you meet with Jerry pre-draft?
No.
Never did?
No, never did.
Anybody with the Cowboys pre-draft?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. What about the Browns? Did you meet with anybody?
Yeah, I met with the Browns, once at the Combine and then again in a meeting in College Station.
Did you ever meet the person who apparently on the street told the owner of the Browns to draft you?
No, I definitely did.
Is that a true story?
I definitely didn't. I'm not sure.
You don't even know if that's true, huh?
I don't.
Because that's the story is, that somebody who was a big fan of yours and told the Browns ownership, go ahead and draft him.
Yeah, I remember seeing something like that, but no, I never got a fact check on it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go straight up the flagpole for that one. So what would you tell your training camp self if you could go back in time right now, Johnny?
I think for me, I would have blocked off, a lot of my other life, a lot of my outside life, and really. It was a huge transition for me, just getting into the difference in, this play style, the play calling, the way the NFL offense kind of works. At Texas A&M, it couldn't have been more easy, couldn't have been more free flowing of a spread offense, and one that, when I got to the NFL, it was a really big adjustment for me. I think I spent, a couple months just getting into, where you get your eyes on certain plays, reading coverage, just being able to. It took me a while to be able to learn the game a little bit, and one that I really didn't feel like, I started to get a good grip on until, after a training camp my second year. So I think, after being as successful as I was in college and really being able to kind of, breeze through at times a little bit, I wish I would have put just a little bit more effort into that training camp self.
Yeah. And so what do you think when you look back? When you think about your career, Johnny, you don't do it too much? Do you ever look back?
Of course I do. I mean, I'm still a guy who watches, NFL football, college football every weekend. I'm still pretty, dialed into it for the most part, and it's tough. You see guys that you're drafted with that are still playing. You see guys like, played with Mike Evans, the guy's still on his, 11th year, whatever it is, and it's something that you miss. It's something that you wish things would have gone differently. And I think for me, there's just things I wish I would have done differently. At times I have a little bit of regret. I obviously moved on a lot with my life now and in a place where, I still feel good and still feel happy even without the game of football being there. But, there is always a regret and always a wish and a hope that, I would have done things better, done things the right way, and been able to have a little bit longer career doing something that I genuinely love.
Yeah, he I wouldn't say he threw it away. I mean, there was some reason to believe that he wouldn't have been a great quarterback, but he certainly could have prolonged his career a lot longer and probably had some better experiences than what he had in the NFL. So that's Johnny Manziel looking back. This is Johnny Manziel looking forward, and these Heisman House commercials really have given kind of life to a lot of Heisman Trophy winners who didn't necessarily work out in the NFL. Like for every Emmitt Smith or Emmitt Smith win a Heisman? No, I guess he didn't. I'm trying to think. Okay, for guys who have won Heisman trophies and have gone on to great NFL careers, there's a lot of Johnny Manziels. There's guys who it didn't work out for. So now he's part of the Heisman House, and people. It's been a while since he played college football, so people get a reacquaintance with him. And as he explained to Eisen, how this all works, how he feels about it, and to now be kind of like mainstream again, which has been helpful to him.
Man, it's great. The Heisman guys in that fraternity and the people that are in there are just absolutely amazing. From the older legends to the guys who I played against or was around the same time, same age as me. So it's a special experience to be able to have a good laugh. They're all pretty funny, to be able to do those spots and for me, I love it. It's a blessing.
Who'd you meet that you were like, okay, that's pretty cool? And
man, anytime you get a chance to be around like Bo Jackson or it's just a surreal experience. Having seen highlights of this guy, what he was able to do, what kind of player he was, just really off the map of just legendary status. So anytime you see Barry Sanders walking around or ever run into him, it's pretty sick. So
another baseball guy who played as a hobby, right?
Just as a
like
hobby.
You.
Yeah, just like me. Exactly. He had a little bit. I think the guy had more talent in his pinky than I did. My whole body.
I would go up to him, and he's been on the show before, and I wished we had more than just 15 minutes with him. With Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
So what do you talk about when do you go up to him? You pick his brain? You just sit around and just swap stories?
I think more than anything, just get a chance to go up and just check in, see how things are doing, just be able to swap some stories. Obviously, a little bit about I try and obviously ask about some legendary times of things that you've seen him do and pick his brain and see what it was really like
on the field or off the field.
Yeah, I mean definitely on the field. I think for the most part.
I'm just trying to dig in there and see what you guys talk at the Heisman House, just walking around where there's Dez, there's you, there's Baker, there's Eddie George walking around. There's all these guys walking. Do you ever talk about whether they voted for you or not? Does that ever come up in a conversation?
Maybe, in the year that I won it, maybe sometime around then when you're first getting a chance to meet the guys and stuff. But after that, I think we're more on to current topics that we talk about, more about who they're watching this year, who they think they're going to vote for this year, and just seeing kind of who we're going to welcome in next.
Who do you think?
Man, obviously Travis Hunter's having a great season. He's the favorite right now. I really think that it's what Ashton Genty's been doing at Boise State has been as impressive as it gets week in and week out, just putting up absolute numbers in the clinic, and has Boise State and a real chance to be able to make it into the playoff this year.
It's amazing you just mentioned two players who don't play quarterback.
Yeah.
Right. So which quarterback do you think should at least get to New York? How does that sound?
I think probably Cam Ward. I think the way he's played at Miami this year, the way he plays the game of football, I think he's a guy that's probably deserving to be in New York. They've had some close games and close calls that he's really, played well enough to dig them out and really get them some wins in some situations that maybe, they didn't deserve.
Yeah, I mean, just watching him in the final 5-10 minutes of a game, it's unbelievable some of the things that you're seeing him.
Yeah, no, the Virginia Tech game was one where he really, kind of willed them back into that win and didn't look like they were going to get it done. So, just the effortless. He plays football really effortlessly, right? You see him out there, it just looks like he's kind of floating. He makes it look pretty easy.
And listen, no disrespect to Ashton Genty or Cam Ward or any of the other quarterbacks. Watching Travis Hunter doing what he's doing, that's like a unicorn. You know what I mean? Like playing 100 snaps at least. I mean, that's a minimum. I might be undercounting the number of snaps that he plays in a game, right?
Yeah.
And the plays that he makes that changes a game on either side. Yep. I mean, he's playing more offense than Charles Woodson ever did.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? Like
we haven't seen anything like this. We haven't seen anything where a guy's playing 100 snaps a game, 50 and 50, and really making an impact on both sides of the ball. And I think you just see it, almost every single week. This guy's just, he's going to be something special, especially when he gets to the next level, I believe, too.
Do you think he can do that at the next level?
I mean, that would be the first time that we've ever really kind of see that. I think as you get into the NFL and as you see with these guys, they're probably, you might have some packages or a couple, formations or something that you would see putting him in at receiver, but I don't think it's a full-time thing that you can really do at the next level.
You don't think so, huh?
No, I don't. Do you?
I think Dion is building him for that purpose. I think Dion is definitely 100%. I can't wait to get Prime on the show in the next couple of weeks to basically just pick his brain on his thoughts on it. I think he thinks the kid can do it, if I had to guess, and that the kid probably wants to try it.
Yeah.
The only question is he going to have a coaching staff that would allow it? Or
it's just so
or
physical.
Foster it in the same way that Dion is doing right now, because Dion's fostering it right now, and you could see the results. But there's more grown-ass men at the next level.
It's definitely a more physical tolling, game at the next level to be able to go and do that and put that many snaps on your body and be able to, do it on both sides of the ball, time in and time out. I think would be it would be tough, but I think if anybody's got it close enough to being able to do it, it's definitely him.
Yeah, I think Dion is probably creating him in this lab with the idea of at least attempting it, and at least telling some coaches, when he's at the combine or in these interviews, to say, hey, I want to try it. And maybe a team might pass on him for that, but I doubt it. I doubt. He's so incredibly talented. I would vote for him for the Heisman. Is that who you would? I know you're counseled not to say these things publicly, but go ahead if you want.
I mean, I think I still want to kind of, I let the whole regular season kind of play itself out, but no, he's definitely at the top of the list right now with him and Genty. I think are neck and neck. It's every single week checking the box score on kind of both of those guys and being able to see, the highlights and kind of what they put out on film for the week before. But, two guys who are, I think, neck and neck.
That's a rejuvenated Johnny Manziel, who's got a podcast called Glory Days, talking about Deion Sanders. I'm surprised. I thought, things would kind of bottom out this year and he'd be gone, moving on to some other place. And he still may be moving on, but because of success. They're 8-2. They got a real shot to be in the playoff, maybe even play for the Big 12 title, the way things are going. And with 8 wins, that's twice as many as they had last year. Now, the thing I wonder about, with his 2 sons leaving, Shador and Shiloh, plus, the best player in the country, I think, win the Heisman Trophy there, Travis Hunter. Is he going to stick around, or is he going to go to greener pastures? I don't know what his buyout is in Colorado, but looks like it was a bargain contract that he signed for the university. 5 years, $29.5 million. He's been well worth that in terms of publicity, in terms of ticket sales, and just where they are. I mean, they were a 1-win team when he took over. They're ranked 16th in the country. They play Kansas on Saturday, and 2 wins away from a spot in the Big 12 title game. That's something that's got a lot of people interested in him, and you're hearing talk about the Dallas Cowboys. he's saying the right things. This is what you always say in these situations. Deion said, I'm happy where I am. I've got a kickstand down. You know what a kickstand is? That means I'm resting. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm enthusiastic about where I am. I love it here. Truly do. As an avid biker, I don't have a kickstand on my bike, but my last bike had a kickstand. A kickstand can be easily kicked out so you can move on, Deion. That's an interesting choice of words that you use there. So I don't be surprised if all three Sanders leave Colorado at the end of the season and there's some other place that he goes. May not be the NFL. Might be another college. Might be Florida State. Might be someplace else. But just taking Deion on his word that he's resting here, he's happy, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure I buy it. I wouldn't be surprised if he's someplace else next year because that's how he rolls. That's kind of what he does. So there you go. All right, coming up, we'll deep dive into what's going on with the Jets. Some reporting yesterday from Diana Rossini. Wow. And also, what's the deal with Alex Ovechkin? How long is he going to be out? So we'll talk about that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630. You know, we got another Harbaugh Bowl coming up. Obviously not as big as the one that took place in New Orleans in 2013 when the Baltimore Ravens won their last Super Bowl, beating the San Francisco 49ers as John Harbaugh beat Jim Harbaugh. And boy, was that a wild Super Bowl, one that was stopped for, 30 minutes because the lights went out in the Superdome. Really crazy. But they're going to meet again on Monday night in Los Angeles. Ravens on the road as 3-point favorites coming off a tough loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And yesterday, Jim Harbaugh was on the Rich Eisen show and talked about what it's going to be like to meet his brother again, how much respect he has for him, so forth and so on. So that's another cool story that's happening this week in the NFL. I can't believe the Commanders are 10.5-point favorites. 10.5 was 10 after the Cowboys lost as badly as they did the other night to the Houston Texans. It's now 10.5. We got Kansas City. It's got to be one of the biggest road favorites in years. Kansas City is going to Carolina as 10.5-point favorites. 10.5 on the road. And Kansas City, I guess, coming off a loss, maybe that got bumped up a little bit because maybe they won't have a slip up or sleepwalk through a game against an inferior opponent. I don't know. But, yeah, two big spreads this week in the NFL, 10.5 at home for the Commanders and then 10.5 on the road for the Kansas City Chiefs, the two favorites there. All right, let me get back to football. Actually, no, let's shift to this now, and then I'll get to Alex Ovechkin in a minute. Diana Rossini, who used to be at Channel 4, and then went to ESPN, worked very, very hard to break stories, and does break quite a few of them with the NFL. She, I think, is that all she covered at ESPN? She may have covered something else, but mainly the NFL, and then was hired by The Athletic to write about stories in the NFL, but also go on various shows and talk about them. She's a regular with Dan Patrick and others. She does a podcast with Chase Daniel, who you're going to hear from in a minute here. But she reported yesterday that Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers after 4 games. After their 10-9 loss to the Denver Broncos in Week 4, Woody Johnson had, as she put it, a contentious meeting with Jets coaches and including former head coach Robert Saleh, who was fired a week later. And during the meeting, Johnson boldly suggested to the coaches that Rodgers should be benched for Tyrod Taylor because he felt that Rodgers was the main culprit for the team's struggles. Well, he is, but the reason he is, Woody, is you turn the whole damn team over to him. Ultimately, the coaches were able to talk him out of it, and Rodgers continues to start for a team that stinks. They're 3-8 and 1-5 since Robert Saleh was fired and replaced with interim coach Jeff Ulbrich. They also fired the general manager Joe Douglas yesterday, as it's just a complete dumpster fire. But it reminded me a little bit of a story that I heard when Michael Jordan was playing for the Wizards. I think it was the second year. It wasn't the first year, but Doug Collins was his hand-picked coach. Remember when Jordan said he was going to come back and play, and he scored a lot of points, but the team didn't accomplish what he said he wanted to accomplish. He said, let me get this team to the playoffs, and I'll teach them how to win in the postseason. Well, they won 37 games each of the 2 years that he played. They filled the arena, but didn't make the playoffs either year, so that didn't work out. And it got very contentious between Jordan and owner Abe Poland, to the point when Jordan thought he could just walk back into a part ownership role and run the team again. Abe fired him there, and I'm told that Jordan jumped out of his chair, had to be restrained, and left a $10 million check on the table, which I'm sure he came back to collect later on. But during that second season, I'm told that Abe ordered Wes Unseld, who still had a role with the team. I think he was still at the title of president. He told Wes to go in and fire Doug Collins, kind of to undercut Michael Jordan. And he wanted no part of that. Wes said, I'm not going to do that. And that's when he retired from the organization. So this might have been somewhat similar in that the owner steps in, tells the coaches to bench the big hope for the future, the guy who's finally going to deliver a Super Bowl, which hasn't been done in New York by the Jets since 1969 when Joe Namath did it 55 years ago. And the coaches talked him out of it. So there's that. Interesting. Right? And now what does Woody Johnson do now? It's pretty clear that Rodgers is not going to be coming back next year. There's going to be a new coach, there's going to be a new general manager, and a clean sweep. There's some reporting that's done by CBS about where Rodgers might wind up. Here are the teams that they think he might have a chance to go to. He's not doing any guaranteed money, so if the Jets have to go as far as cut him, they will. One stop could be the Raiders. I think this is very interesting. Their trio, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Desmond Ridder. That doesn't excite anybody. They will probably draft a quarterback. But this is Vegas, and this is Al Davis's son running the team. And this is also a team that has part ownership by Tom Brady, who probably looks at a lot of young quarterbacks today and thinks they all stink and Aaron Rodgers is good. That might be possible. Minnesota is an interesting spot. Now, they've got first-round pick J.J. McCarthy, who's out for the year after knee surgery, so he would be coming back. But as well as they played with Sam Darnold, and they're 8-2 with Darnold, he's only on a one-year deal. So do you give him big money and a long-term extension, or do you play the J.J. McCarthy story a little bit further out and just have him kind of back up Rodgers for a while until he gets the hang of things and see what you could do with a team that's playing awfully well with a guy who's sort of a retread quarterback? I don't know. That, to me, is a very enticing situation. If I'm the Vikings, I might think about that. Even though Aaron Rodgers brings all kinds of distractions and drama, that might be what you need. I don't know. I think at this point, maybe they think he's over the hill, but who knows? Colts, Joe Flacco is sort of their Rodgers this year. Jury's still out on Anthony Richardson. He's back starting again. He actually beat the Jets this past week. I don't think that's likely. Will Levis looks like a bomb in Tennessee. He's probably on his way out, 4-12 in his first 16 starts. I don't think Tennessee would necessarily be a stop. And the Giants are mentioned too, and that's not going to happen. They got Tommy DeVito to basically lose out so they can get involved in the quarterback draft for next year. But some interesting possibilities there. All right, to Alexander Ovechkin, who, again, is hardly been out his entire career with injuries. He's been remarkably durable. Russian machine never breaks. Well, now he breaks, and instead of the usual day-to-day that we usually hear when he has some type of injury, and nothing's ever been major enough for him to sit out extended period of time, now they're calling it week-to-week, and it's a shame because he's on a tear. He started the season 18 games with 15 goals. He's leading the league in goals. The team is really good, and it comes to a halt. This was Tony and Mike yesterday on PTI.
I have no reaction to the goals. I don't care about that. Ovechkin has scored enough goals. I care that he is playing so well. He's playing so well. I just want to see him. He's old now. I mean, he's been around for forever, and to have this kind of season, it's LeBron-like. And it's the same way I'm going to refer to LeBron and Steph Curry, guys who are royalty in their sports, all-time forever greats. Alex Ovechkin is that. And so I go back to like when Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, and when the great players have these things late, you just feel bad. I'm even going to go to a guy that I've lately disliked, but he's an all-time great. Aaron Rodgers, he got hurt last year. You just want to see the all-time greats play, give them an applause in their bell lap, and so we're not seeing that, and that's what bothers me. That's all I care about.
He's 39 years old. He's off to the hottest start he's ever had at 39 years old. 15 goals, leads the league. 15 goals in 18 games, on a pace for 68 goals, which would be his career mark. But when they say week to week, Mike, that's a little bit scary. This guy never gets hurt. This is a number that's amazing. He has missed 35 games due to injury in his entire career. 1,444 games. He's only missed 35 with injury. He's the big Russian machine. But he's 39 for the first time. Maybe injuries happen more often. Maybe they linker. He needs 27 goals to pass Gretzky, and we both know he's going to get it. But if he got it in the next 44 games, he'd get to that number ahead of Gretzky. He's not Gretzky, but he could be the greatest goal scorer. I mean, week to week doesn't sound good. It just doesn't for a guy who never gets hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a discouraging thing. But the incredible thing to me is when we looked at the record a couple of years ago, my feeling was, oh, man, they maybe have to drag this guy along for a while just to get the record. He deserves that, but, is he going to slow down the rebuild of the team with younger players? And here they are with a year that you think, okay, let's get this out of the way so we can get Ovechkin retired and move on. He's one of the star players of the team. He's the leading goal scorer in the league, and they have one of the best records. So now you got to, as Dan Quinn says, recalibrate. You got to adjust your thinking, and it's more than let's just get him back on the ice as quickly as possible so we can get him back on track to break the record. It's like, okay, let's make sure that Alex Ovechkin is fully healthy so that when they are in the playoffs, they're a long way from getting there, but they're on track to do that. When they get in the playoffs, maybe they can make a run with him. Maybe at 39, crazy and random as hockey playoffs are, maybe they're a factor in getting to the Stanley Cup finals, semifinals, who knows? I mean, everything is in play now, and it's been a remarkable start to the season, and really a crushing injury the other night. We'll see as the days go on just how serious it is. All right, some more NFL talk. Chase Daniel, who was actually selected by Washington after the draft, I want to say, goes way back. Probably early 2000s. He was coming out of Missouri, wasn't drafted. He's very small. I once met him. I seem taller than he is, and I'm 5'8.5" and shrinking. But he stayed in the NFL for 14 years. Didn't play much, but was in a lot of different quarterback rooms, as they call it, and knows the game, articulates it well. Does a podcast with Diana Rossini, and was on yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. Talking about quarterbacks in general and ones who burst on the scene and do really well, like C.J. Stroud last year, and like Jaden Daniels this year. And this was Chase Daniel on quarterbacks being figured out by the league.
There's only so many things a defense can do. They can play cover two, they can blitz, they can play man. So defenses have way less of a playbook, if that makes sense to me. I think what they're doing on defense now to sort of counteract is they're making him stay in the pocket. Like last year, what I saw from him is like when stuff broke down, he was able to escape and he was able to make these plays down the field because his receivers were rolling. Now I think what they're doing a good job of on defense is you call it a mush rush, okay? So a mush rush means you're rushing the passer, but you're really not rushing the passer, and you just want to stay in your pass rush lanes. Not a lot of people talk about it. But that frustrates a quarterback because you're taking away your first and second read and you're not able to get out and extend the play. That's what CJ was so good at last year, and he's turning the ball over more. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think CJ has to just – I mean, it obviously helped last night. You have Nico Collins, but you just got to go back to sort of the basics on what you're doing and just like, hey, you got to somehow find a way to get out of the pocket and make those plays down the field because I thought last year that's what made him special.
How did the Cowboys salvage this season?
They can't. There's no way. How like where in the world are you going to salvage this season? Like your starters out.
Well, do you give Trey Lance a chance? You have to start looking at the future. Mike McCarthy's not going to be there. Do you trade Micah Parsons? Like, I don't know. Are you trying to figure out exactly what is their identity now?
They don't have it, and that's the problem. Like right, because that's what Jerry Jones said. Hey, we're all in the offseason. You know what they did? They signed a long snapper. They didn't go out. They didn't get Derrick Henry. They didn't get a run game. They didn't do any of this stuff. So in free agency from the start, and then you don't give your head coach, your lame duck head coach Mike McCarthy, a new contract. So why even bring him back? That I go back to that. Like, you're a lame duck coach. The only way you're keeping your job is if you win the Super Bowl, and this roster's way worse than it was last year. For me, I was on the Trey Lance bandwagon. Like, you trade a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance, and now he's your backup. He was your 3rd-string quarterback. Like, we know what Cooper Rush can do. We don't know what Trey Lance can do. Like, he played pretty bad in the preseason, just wasn't in timing and in rhythm. But you put him out there with CeeDee Lamb now, I mean, stuff might change. But at the end of the day, a quarterback's best friend's a run game. Dak didn't have it. That's why he's turning the football over. Cooper Rush doesn't have it. They're having to throw the ball 50 yards. And then, Dan, you know the season's going crazy and haywire when stuff's falling from the ceiling and Brandon Aubrey's missing kicks. Like, that's how I knew this season is over for them.
Although Brandon Aubrey set a record with 10 field goals of more than 50 yards 2 straight years. And yes, stuff did fall from the ceiling in Dallas. That was the least of their problems with what happened the other night in that game against Houston. Part 2 with Chase Daniel, who I think is very insightful about football. About who's the best team in the NFC. Is it Detroit or possibly anybody else?
No, it's the Lions. It's the Lions. Like, for me, I like what the Eagles are doing. However, I still feel strongly that Jalen Hurts is not playing his best football. And the Eagles are doing what they're doing offensively because of Saquon Barkley and that offensive line. Like, if you take Saquon Barkley off the Eagles, I don't know if they are where they at right now. But when you watch the Lions play, they're on the different level. Like Ben Johnson, Jared Goff, you could put Jared Goff in the top 5 of the MVP race, even with a 5-interception game. Like, you throw 5 interceptions at a contender in the Houston Texans, and you somehow find a way to win. Like it's never been done since it's like the last time it's been done is like 1970. You come back from 15, you throw 5 interceptions. So if I had to pick, and I'm not all in on the Eagles. I think they're a good team. I think defensively, Vic Fangio's not getting enough credit for what he's doing, especially since the bye week. But I mean, reluctantly, I'll say the Eagles just to appease you.
I never thought we would read a headline or even consider the Ravens making a change at kicker with Justin Tucker. Like, he was the sure thing. If there was a Mariano Rivera of football players or kickers, Justin Tucker would be one of those names. What happens to a kicker like this when all of a sudden he's not who we thought he was?
Yeah, I mean, look, Justin Tucker is going to go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, kickers of all time. I heard Eddie Pinheiro just passed him for the most accurate kicker in NFL history, right? And it's sort of tough to see like someone like a Mariano Rivera that you just know is going to get it done and struggle. He's already missed as many kicks as he did last year. And it's not even long kicks, it's these short kicks. It's almost like you have the yips in baseball. And it just seems when he's kicking the football, he's not kicking it the way we're all used to. So for like fans, just in general, it's tough. There's really nothing you can do because like when you're at practice with the kickers, like you see them working on the side. In offense and defense going, they're just always working on the side, and they'll come and have one special teams period and kick. It's almost like more mental. I mean, it is more mental because physically he can still do it, right? I think you got to make some long kicks. You got to make a game-winning kick or something like that to get it back. But what used to be an automatic 3 is just not anymore, and the Ravens have lost some games because of it.
Yeah. Trying to understand the Caleb Williams situation. Can you put yourself in his position right now of why is he struggling where Bo Nix is lighting it up, Drake May shows more promise, and certainly Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it, right? Like Caleb Williams, in my opinion, is the 4th quarterback right now in terms of play, in terms of development. And I don't want to put too much on coaching, but I do agree that like the first 4 or 5 games of the year, Shane Waldron, he was calling a very pro-style offense, almost like he did with Justin Fields, or like what Luke Getsy did with Justin Fields. Is like almost the same offense where you're under center, you're play action, you're trying to do too much at the line of scrimmage. I think you put too much on the rookie. And when you do that and you don't have success, mentally your mind goes to like, can I handle this? Can I handle this league? And he's confident on the outside, right? But you could tell mentally he wasn't seeing it the last few games. But I do like what Thomas Brown did. He got back. He's running the football. I think they ran it 30 times in the first half. So while Bears fans are frustrated because really the whole franchise of all the quarterbacks they've had has been frustrating. They've never had a 4,000-yard passer. They've never had 35. I get that. But when you go to last game, I am encouraged by what I saw, mainly because he just took the easy completions. He got the football out of his hands. He didn't take bad sacks. He didn't really turn over. And then when you look at the two games they've lost, right, the Washington Hail Mary game and then this past game where they get a block kick, when Caleb needed plays the most in 2 minutes, he made those plays. Like the last two drives against the Commanders, he won that game for them if they just knocked down the Hail Mary. And then this past game in 2 minutes, he made an amazing 3rd and 19 throw, got out of the pocket. He made a crazy 4th and 3 back shoulder throw to Rome Odunze. And then he checked to the game-winning, what should have been the game-winning catch to Keenan Allen in the slot. So he's making progress. And I think this is sort of where they should have started. And you got to slowly build his confidence back up.
Yeah, I thought that Caleb did a good job of getting the Bears in position to win that game. Should have won it. It was a 43-yard field goal attempt. That's a chip shot in the NFL. But the Packers blocked the kick, and that's 2 losses for the Bears that are absolutely devastating. The Hail Mary game here and that last Sunday at home against the Green Bay Packers. If they win those 2 games, I think, he's in the discussion anyway of a guy who's well on track to be a franchise quarterback, which I think he eventually will be. But there are the growing pains that he's going through that we aren't seeing as much with Jaden Daniels, though, Daniels – Tom Lavera wrote a column yesterday, and I think we went over it a little bit. But his like the headline or the sub-headline in the column was that Commander fans hope he's hurt, meaning that his play has tailed off in the last few weeks, and you hope it's because of injury, not because he's regressing. And Dan Quinn said the other day, and he said, honestly, anytime a coach begins a sentence with the word honestly, you got to be a little skeptical, but his track record says he's a straight shooter. He says he's not injured anymore. He did say that there were some weeks, after he hurt his ribs against Carolina, that they were limited in what they could do in practice. That's not the case, and they get ready to play Dallas today. Today's the first day of practice since they played last week against Philadelphia, and he should be ready to go. Did he use the term 100%? No, but nobody is 100% at this time of year. Anyway, that's a wrap for me. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.